Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to take a look at wage-based projects. A wage-based project is ideal when you are paid by the hour and you need to create invoices to send to clients and to track the state of those invoices. To get started, we tap the Add button on the main time tracking screen. This then lets us select the type of project, in this case wage-based, and from there we can set up some basic settings for the project, so the name of the project, the invoice payee, so our name that will appear on invoices, and the description of the type of services that will be being performed. We can also set up the amount of time they have to pay each invoice. We can then set up an email address that will be used as the default recipient when we try to send a timesheet, expense report, or invoice via email. We can set up the time tracking, so how we round time on break and worked. We set up the different payment methods, so our hourly rate and the currency, and then the specific methods they can pay us by. In this case, we'll set up a PayPal method, but we can support multiple different payment methods at the same time, and you can set them all up easily. We can set the advance payment information, so the currency that we actually receive payment in. And then we can set up address information, so the mailing address of our client. If the invoice needs to be CC'd to a particular individual, then we can add that in. And we can also set our address, and all of this will appear on the invoice. From there, we can set up business numbers that we might be required to list. We can customize the appearance of the invoices and reports that are generated. And finally, we can set an invoice as being a tax invoice, which you might be required to do in your particular location. Dropbox can be used to share your timesheets, invoices, and expense reports, but before you can actually do this, you'll need to complete a one-time setup to link Contractor's Little Helper to Dropbox. Once we've created our project, we can select it on the time tracking screen, start tracking time for it, we can record the details of the work that we've performed, and we can start a break, or if we tap stop, we close out this timesheet. We now have added in several additional timesheet entries that you can see here. We can manually add one if we need to. From this screen, we can set the start time and the finish time for the entry. We can also use this if we need to edit an existing timesheet entry, and you'll see the time worked updates accordingly at the top. We can also set up the hourly rate for the particular day. The work description, as on the main screen, can be entered here for the work that you performed during that day. As well as entering in the time and the description, we can also set up breaks for the project. So in this case, we're going to add in a break for our lunch hour. As you'll see with the break, the time worked and time on break is updated and the new entry is present. We'll now add an expense, and we can select the date for the expense. We can set the amount for the expense, which by default will be in the same currency as the invoices. We can then add in a description for the expense. This description will appear on any invoices or in any expense reports that you create for this project. Once we're happy with the expense details, we can tap Done, and we'll see it now in the list of expenses. Now we're going to add another expense, but this time, rather than the amount being in the invoice currency, we're going to add an expense that in this case is in Australian dollars. So you'll see when we select that, at the top we can enter in the actual amount in Australian dollars, and as before with the expenses, we can set up a description. Once we've set up the description, we then need to enter in the actual amount in our invoice currency. This allows us to correctly invoice for the right amount. If we now go to the project summary screen, we'll see details of expenses and time that are not yet invoiced. So we can go to the invoice generation screen, select to create an invoice, select our template, and then when we go to the next screen, we'll see the invoice that's just been created with the address information, this description of the services, and the expenses. We can also generate a timesheet or an expense report if we need to. In the invoice list, we can see the actual invoices present. We can see if they've been paid or unpaid. If we select the invoice, then we can then choose to mark it as paid, can select when it was actually paid, and we can also record the amount that we received in the currency that we selected in the project settings. And you'll see the invoice has now changed to being flagged as paid, and the project summary screen now reports that invoice as paid. I hope you've enjoyed this video. We're going to be doing more tutorial videos, so keep an eye out for future ones. In the description below, you'll find links to our website, to other tutorial videos, and also a link where you can purchase the app.